cocktail sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
Let's just start off, for anybody that doesn't know you here, let's just give a real brief background on like who you are, how'd you get started in this business? So I guess first, who is Jonathan?
It's a big question, Frank. My name is Jonathan Neman. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you all for coming. This is very humbling. I grew up in Los Angeles. Got to DC via Georgetown University, and started Sweetgreen. The idea of Sweetgreen started when we were seniors in college. Met my two co-founders, Nicholas and Nathaniel, and it really started with a problem, I guess, that we had, and it was this lack of healthy eating options, and we felt it. Like a lot of, I think, good ideas in the world, the women around us really felt it, and so we were in touch with the women in the world. And we had all come back from really interesting experiences. I had just come back from about 8 months abroad. I was living in Australia in Bondi Beach. Nate was in Madrid, and Nick was in Paris. And we'd all come back come back to school after being, on these adventures, and I think it was wanting to just create something and do something, not just in the traditional sense of what we were supposed to do going to Georgetown. So
what did you go to Georgetown for in particular?
I went to Georgetown to get as far away from LA. As much as I love LA, I wanted to get out of the bubble that was LA and the community that I grew up in. And it was the best school I got into, so I kind of had to go.
What were you focused on there? what was the focus when you were?
The focus while I was at Georgetown.
Yeah. The high level answer.
It was always business. It was always entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It was always always kind of knew that I wanted to start a business, create something.
Right.
I think that all three of us actually, our parents were all entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And so that was, I think, kind of just in the DNA that we would eventually do something on our own. I don't know if we always thought it would be right away. It was, probably go get a job, learn from someone else. And Sweetgreen was, in a way, it was almost accidental that we wanted to create something, and we opened this little shop on M Street. It was the first shop we opened was 560 square feet, and it was ironically an old burger shop. It was called the Little Tavern, and it's funny, people come in now and they're like, oh, I used to be wasted in here at 3 in the morning and getting sliders. But we opened it as just really something we wanted. We were so close to it. I lived three houses down from that little tavern. Mm-hmm. And sort of walk by it every day, and we were so fed up with the options that we're like, fuck it, we're just going to do something.
Right.
Say that.
No, you can totally say it.
Okay, cool.
I thought this was a family show. Not anymore. No, I'm just kidding. You can say whatever you want. Just we'll earmuff people next time.
Cool.
Okay, so let's get. So you got this idea. You all together decided we got to do something. We got to make a change in the way that or the options for people. What was it like to come to that to that point, and then where did you go next? Like, how did you get it going?
So when it started, it was an idea, and it was based off of this one particular spot. And the spot, if you've seen the first Sweetgreen today, it's this little greenhouse.
Little house, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little greenhouse, a teeny greenhouse, and it was so much that it had to be there. Mm-hmm. It was perfectly distanced between the university and also being on M Street. Yeah. So it was,
a lot of traffic.
Yeah, it had the traffic, but it wasn't in the heart of M Street, so it wasn't that expensive. It was just this perfect storm of would service the community and would also service the students. Mm-hmm. And the first thing we did was we started calling the number on the door. And called the number on the door, and the woman who was leasing the place, her name was Marcy, and she thought we were a complete joke. She thought it was a school project of sorts, and she essentially took the first phone call, but after we told her what we wanted to do, she wouldn't take a meeting. So it became a joke of we're going to be so persistent until she gives in. So we called her for about a month straight, every single day, and it was the thing. It was first thing in the morning, call Marcy, and then finally she caved. So she caved, and I remember we stayed up all night the night before the meeting. And putting together a business plan, and the business plan was about 4 pages or so, Originally, the first version, it was called Avo, short for avocado, for our love of avocado.
I love avocados too.
And
How many people love avocados, right? Right? Yeah.
we don't trust you if you don't. We put on suits the next morning, you know, walked in all, you know, thought we were all prepared with this business plan, and she's like, all right, I get it, you guys seem like you're sort of serious, but if you really want to do this, I need you to go really figure it out. I want to see like schematic plans, an architect, I want to see, you know, you have the money to build this.
Right.
So then she actually, in a way, became a mentor. She's still actually a friend, and it was, you know, she really pushed us to really like think about it. This wasn't a school project. This wasn't a joke.
Right.
And when it became real was when we had to go start asking for money.
Right. So so you came up with all the plans, and then where did you? Because the next step is you got to pay for that space, right? I mean, how did you do that?
So when we first started, it was we really didn't know, you know, how you raise money, not only from like a venture point of view, but for a restaurant, it was a different world of funding. So we went to friends and classmates and, you know, family friends, and we ended up raising about $300,000 from, I don't know, 30 people.
Wow.
So we took, you know, checks from 5 to our biggest check was 25. So it was.
It's like crowdfunding without
It was
the platform.
it was crowdfunding. It was
Yeah.
literally just like we took a lot of $5,000 and $10,000 checks, and it was people who believed in us. It was a classmate whose dad believed in us, and we just took you know, so many meetings. We obviously got, like, I guess like any entrepreneur, got, you know, hundreds of no's. Right. But we got, you know, a few people that believed in the idea, and we funded the first restaurant.
Okay. And so now you've got the restaurant. What was the first, you know, thing that you decided, okay, we know we're going to do this type of food, or did you know, what was the kind of, did you all lay it out together, or did it come together kind of in pieces, like?
So after it was called Avo, it was going to be called Greens.
Both probably taken or something, or?
Avo was not taken, Greens was.
Oh, okay.
And it's actually sad, Greens was kind of based off of this cafe in Australia, and I went first time back to Sydney a couple weeks ago, and the place was gone. It was very heartbreaking. But the idea was to create healthy food that was accessible, affordable, and still delicious. So to challenge the norms of what healthy food could be.
Right.
And from the very beginning, I think it was it was marketed to us in a way. It was something that we actually wanted for ourselves, both the food and that lifestyle. And Nate and I, one of the co-founders from Los Angeles, so grew up with this kind of food. Yeah. And Nick is from New York, grew up in a food family. His family grew up with his family owning restaurants. Okay. So he grew up with a great culinary background, and I think the combination of like our interests, our passions, and the life we lived, just like this Sweetgreen was the manifestation of that.
Okay, so then how did you figure out, okay, you know, now you've got to figure out how to get supplies and things like that. Like, where did you go to figure that out? Was it just, oh, we know we need to get some greens and we need to get avocados, and I'm going to call up, you know.
So it started at the farmer's market.
Right,
so
okay.
the food all started at the farmer's market.
Okay.
And you know, the farmer's market scene, this was, you know, 2007. It was still a burgeoning farmer's market scene. Right. And so that's where we went first. And we went there and we found a distributor. That same distributor is currently our distributor for all of our Mid-Atlantic restaurants. They've been a great partner, and a lot of those same farmers that we found at the farmers market have grown with us and still supply a lot of our food. Okay. So it was a lot of trial and error, and just try a lot of things and see what sticks.
So how long before you opened the actual first location did it take, you know, to get all that stuff lined up? I mean, was it all like, we got the location and now we got to do this in like 2 weeks, or is this like a...
No, so the idea was, I guess, hatched. I remember it was actually, we were driving to a music festival in September, October of 2006. We did not open the restaurant. We wrote a business plan for a few months, decided, are we really going to do this? It was, you write, college kids write a lot of business plans, and they talk about how they're going to do something, and they tell everybody how they have this great idea, and then it comes time to do it, and we had that moment.
Then it gets real.
Yeah, we're like, oh, we had to write our first check for $20,000.
Right.
And I remember, writing this check and like, oh, okay, so we're actually doing this. This is actually happening. And so that was our first check that we wrote was sometime around January.
Okay.
We thought the restaurant was going to be open March, April. We knew nothing. we knew absolutely nothing. I don't know if we still, to this day, after 22 restaurants, I don't know if we've ever opened a restaurant on time. But on that one, at least we had the excuse that we didn't know anything. And so, we were hoping to open sometime in the spring. We ended up opening in August.
I think that's really refreshing to know, as there's probably other people that have ideas here that maybe want to start something like a restaurant or maybe something else, but to realize that they don't need to know everything.
You do not need to know anything. I mean, I think one thing about us, we kind of knew what we knew and knew what we didn't know, and none of us really had true operations like restaurant experience. And so we weren't afraid to admit that and ask people and hire the right people that we needed that did, that knew the pieces that we didn't know. So we really rounded out our team, whether it was working for us or, third-party providers that, were the best in what they did.
Right.
But yeah, it was a scramble. It was a true, we have all the crazy startup stories. I mean, two days before we were supposed to open, this is the days before Dropbox and the cloud. Nick, who had all the recipes on his computer was sitting in my apartment, which, like I said, was 3 doors down to our restaurant. And we were in there doing training, getting ready. Someone had left the door open, and we come back and the computer's gone.
Oh, jeez.
And so, 48 hours before the first restaurant opened, nobody sleeps, like recreating everything from scratch. And that was Sweetgreen for the first few years.
That's a great story. Never caught him, huh? Whoever it was.
No.
Shoot.
The good thing is that was the impetus that made Nick go from a PC to a Mac.
Oh, that's funny. And use the cloud. Now it's available. Okay, so that first restaurant, you got the word out because
The story would have been better if you created Dropbox after that.
yeah. It's like, and then I started Dropbox. Yeah, that would have been a nice little roundabout way to start a company.
On the side.
Yeah, on the side, right. Let's talk about that marketing opportunity, like the marketing of Sweetgreen. Like, you've got that great location. It's a little, little house that draws people's attention. That's pretty much, marketing itself. But aside from foot traffic, how did you get the word out there? How was that first hustle of marketing and creating that experience?
I think when it started, it was really about just creating an experience, like a deep emotional connection with the customers. So it was us there connecting with people.
Okay.
And it was, the space is very small. There's no seating. There's a few little outdoor seats, but
Right.
it was really, talking to people and in that small moment, providing. In a way, it's a great opportunity because expectations are low. You have, most fast food environments, expectations are very low. You have, 10 seconds or whatever, that customer interaction is so little. Where if you can create an emotional connection there, both from the people, from the music, the environment, like the values of what the company stands for,
Right.
people are wowed and they'll become loyal and they'll tell their friends.
I think the first time user experience I had with your first store was the things that I remember now, this is years later, was it's quaint, clean, and friendly.
Yeah.
Those are the first three, because it's a tiny little place, super clean, and then the person that served me was really nice to me the whole time.
And that's, in a way, the bars.
Was that you? By chance? I don't think it was. But anyway, it was, the person was really nice, And so I think that did create an emotional connection. And then I saw you start popping up for other restaurants, other places.
Right. So, real estate in our business is very important.
Right.
The real estate is critical that the right, the people that understand our brand and, would-be customers are there.
Yeah.
But, the actual connection you create in the store. And we're a big believer of, what we call marketing to the tribe and not to the crowd. So we like to find small tribes of people that really believe in what we're doing and teach them about Sweetgreen, get them in, and they'll tell other people, rather than kind of blanketing the world and see like the funnel where people come, you have the world is here and you sort of break it down to finally see who's your customer.
Right.
We look at it the other way of find our customers and they will tell more people.
That's great. Makes a lot of sense. So those first customers, I assume, were a lot of people that you knew through this university, foot traffic, and then it went on from there. Was any of that online? Did you go to the web to do any of that?
Yeah, I mean, we had a website from day one. It was a very simple website. It was a Flash website. You guys remember that?
I think every restaurant starts with Flash.
Yeah, it was a Flash website, which we thought was so cool.
Right.
Yeah. Had all this cool animation when it first started.
Mm-hmm.
This was Twitter hadn't been started yet.
Right.
Facebook, we had a Facebook page from day one, but it was cool having a small business in the age of social media like being created.
Yeah.
Because it was like we got to experiment with all of these things. Like before there was Foursquare, there was like Looped, and there was like all the there's like other there's all these other versions of the ones that actually made it.
Right.
And
cool.
we kind of tried to, at one point we were on so many different social networks, and now we're very careful which ones we actually choose to invest time on.
Right.
Because
it takes forever.
We talk about it. Social media is not free.
Right.
To do it right is actually, it takes a lot of resources, and it can be quite
Right.
quite time.
So you do invest now time into social media outreach and everything else you do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about another thing that kind of popped up as you were marketing. I don't know the story of this, so I'd like to hear how you guys also started. You started some other restaurants. I don't know the timing when that happened, but I know there's one in Ballston, and there's been a couple others, I think. How many do you have now in the area?
There's 22. There's 18 in the greater DC area,
Wow.
and then one New York, one Boston, and 2 in Philadelphia.
Okay. So as they started to kind of spread out into different areas, there was this Sweetlife Festival that was born. And I assume that was part of a marketing idea, or was it just for fun? Or I just wanted to get a little bit more about how did Sweetlife Festival come about?
Yeah, so Sweetlife was, again, it was a solution to a problem.
Okay.
And I think like all things, like Sweetgreen Sweetlife was a combination of fun and marketing. And
Right.
I think that's what good marketing is, fun.
Right.
And so Sweetlife started, so taking a step back, music was always like a huge part of the Sweetgreen experience.
Right.
I remember, big discussion around, what was that first song we played when we opened the first Sweetgreen going to be? Like, what was that playlist? It was always, for us, I think, music takes you back, and gives you these amazing memories, and it can provide a great emotional connection.
Right.
And you go to a restaurant, they're playing that song and the right volume, and not that top 40 song that you'd expect to hear, but something a little more interesting. Right. And it tells something about the brand. And so it was always part of the DNA. But when we opened the second location we opened in 2009, about 18 months after the first one, and it was in DuPont Circle.
Right.
At the time we opened there, we were on, I guess, the wrong side of the street. It's now a great location, but we were the first retail restaurant open on that side of the street.
There's a big bank there.
Yeah,
there's
a
bunch of
PNC
stuff.
Bank, and now there's like a shop house, a BGR,
Right. Tons of stuff
all
there
that
now.
stuff.
Yeah.
So we were the first ones there, and the rest of the block was completely empty.
Right.
And opened April 1st, 2009. April's supposed to be spring. I guess it wasn't. It was freezing cold. And we had no customers. We were really, really struggling. This store was not small and cheap rent. This was a big store.
In a high price
We spent
place,
a lot of money building it. We, in a high priced area.
Yeah.
And I remember we looked at each other. We're like, oh, dream's over.
Oh,
We gotta go get real jobs.
Right.
Like this could
So you
be
had
it.
those moments, those oh shit moments that you.
Oh yeah, all the time. I think
Yeah.
there's throughout the history still today there's moments where it's like you feel like the momentum is so great and you could take this till infinity and it could all crumble at the same time.
Right.
I think that doesn't go away.
Right. as you push it, it keeps.
Yeah,
right.
there's this new stakes, and it still feels like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when we opened that second store, we really felt like this, this could be it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a Saturday morning, and Nick was at the restaurant, just like running the restaurant. This was before we actually had the store manager. So Nick was running the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Nate and I are like, we should do something.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided we would start playing music on the sidewalk. And Nate really likes Guitar Center, so he's like, let's go to Guitar Center. I think he wanted an excuse to go to Guitar Center. And so we went and bought this giant black speaker. Still sits in my living room today. But this giant black speaker, set up a brown folding table in front, and we just started like DJing on the sidewalk. Pointed the speaker towards the DuPont Circle, and just played music and met customers and kind of created a scene where people are like, oh, something's happening. Let's go say what's up, and we give some samples out, and trial is everything. So people just wanted to try it, and I think see that there's people behind it.
Right.
That this is not, and you get to tell them about it. Then you get to tell them the story, tell them what we stood for, tell them kind of like the values and the philosophy of why we were doing this.
Yep.
And it started to work. So we did this every week for a few months, and it kind of evolved into a block party. So that summer we started throwing block parties, and if you know the farmers market is in that parking lot. So it was like a post-farmers market block party, and it was free, and it was, first time was like maybe less than 100 people, then a couple hundred people. We did it probably 4 or 5 times, and the last time, we called it a festival. It was in 2010. It was April of 2010. It was still free, but had maybe like 800 people maybe. But we actually built a stage, and we had, and each time we'd have local bands that would come, some of who've now done incredibly well, but at the time they were just local bands and DJs that were playing. So that was 2010. It was relatively successful. We got some press. It was cool. And the next year we decided we wanted to make it much bigger, as in 2,000 people. And so we went searching for a venue. And we found a bunch of places, but they all had issues, and the biggest one was they cost a lot of money to build out the infrastructure, stage, sound, lights. And so we met this guy, his name's Seth Hurwitz, who's ended up becoming our partner in the festival. And he was the one that was going to produce our festival. He owns the 930 Club. Right. And he's like, this may sound crazy, but I am crazy. So why don't you just do it at Merriweather Post Pavilion?
I'm surprised he didn't say 930 Club.
Yeah.
It fits about 2,000 people.
Yeah, it fits 1,500 people. But we wanted an outdoor festival.
Got
so he's
it.
like, why don't we just do it at Merriweather? Go big or go home, right? And we're like,
this is
okay. Okay, what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
And he's like, well, let's talk about who would you want to play, and if we could get the right talent, we'll do it. Right. And our dream was, our favorite band in high school was a band called The Strokes. And so, we get The Strokes. This would be the coolest thing in the world. And somehow, The Strokes were coming out with a new album. The timing was perfect. They agreed that they would play the festival, and then everything else kind of fell into place.
So that was 2010 you did that?
That was 2011 was
exactly.
Merriweather.
The first time.
Yeah, and so this will be our 4th year at Merriweather. The first year was about 13,000 people.
Yeah. So bigger than the 2,000.
Yeah, so it went from 600 to 13,000. We now do, it's almost 20,000 people, 3 stages, and we do create like a food and music experience.
Awesome.
This year will be May 10th.
May 10th.
Save the date.
There you go. Did you even announce anybody?
No, we're hoping to announce
soon
in the next week, yeah.
Okay, great. So be looking for that announcement. Last year, who did you have headlining?
Last year we had Phoenix, Passion Pit, Kendrick Lamar, Yaz, Solange, Gary Clark Jr.
Wow. And so for you guys, like, your return on this is obviously, number one, you guys, that's pretty fun, right? Like, you have a good time doing
Yeah.
that. Secondly, it's good marketing for you guys, right? Get the word out. Do you guys serve your food there? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's this idea of like unusual combinations that inspire. It's kind of how we describe, one of the ways we describe the Sweet Life.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about a massive music festival, which is usually the most unhealthy, wasteful experience ever, making it fully sustainable and, full of healthy options. We do serve other kinds of food, but, Sweetgreen is everywhere. You can have quinoa and kale and green juice and coconut water. And so to be able to, we like to say, like, have your cake and eat it too, right? Sort of go to a music festival like that and still be healthy. Is kind of the vision behind it.
It's unique. I don't think I've ever. Is there anything else like it?
We like to think no.
Okay, so that's coming up. That's pretty exciting. Let's switch gears a second. So, you obviously had a market to get this out there. Hosting festivals, doing startup industry, and then in talking with you, you talked about Flash and some of these other things. Do you guys consider yourself a tech company, or? I mean, I'm just curious.
In a way, I think we see tech as an accelerator of the things we do. We're not a tech company, but it is a huge cornerstone of what we do.
Right, because you've got a website, you've got an app, right?
We have an app. An app is every year there's a piece of some tech concept that is one of our key imperatives. So it's a cornerstone of our business, right? So last year it was launching this app. We launched an app that now 1 out of 4 customers pay with their phone.
So it has payments built in.
It has payment built in.
It's your own system.
And it's our own system. So it's the first of its kind to be able to pay with a Sweetgreen branded app.
Right.
So that was huge. This year we're working on some really cool stuff using technology. For us, it's web is informational. There's also online ordering, which is ordering. Social media has become huge as creating this brand platform. We're all Instagram obsessed, and each platform has its different use. Teresa's here actually. She actually runs all of our tech and digital.
Right there.
So anything you see on social media is coming from her team.
Awesome. So how did you even tackle that whole building? Like, I think it's interesting that you built your own payment platform. There's others out there.
So we leverage a payment platform and we branded it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. So we took a existing payment platform and branded it and kind of created our own experience within their platform. And that's how people pay.
Okay. So I guess where I'm going with this is you just recently had a big announcement. You raised funding, right, from Revolution.
Right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know that's not an easy process. Probably easier than, well, was it easier than going to get 30 people to give you $300,000?
Until you got to the legal docs.
It was easier, yeah, the handshake part was easier, right?
It's nice that you don't have so many people that, this is the first time, we've never taken institutional capital before.
Right.
Up until now, we kind of shied away from it.
Right.
And we took this mentor angel approach of surrounding ourselves with great people we admired. So created a really awesome group of advisors that also gave us money, and it wasn't one big institution.
Right.
And to be honest, when this Revolution deal happened, we weren't really looking.
Right.
Steve was a personal investor. He was one of those mentors.
Right.
And the timing was right, and they were able to be an innovative partner that we had never seen in the space.
Right.
And easier and harder. I mean, we have, up until now, we had a lot of investors, so it was tough keeping track of all of them.
Right.
But this was just different. It was a different world for us.
Okay. So can you talk about that? How that came to be? I mean, you said that he was an investor already. Can you give the story of how you guys got funded by Revolution?
Sure.
They're breaking bottles back there.
All right. So it started off, someone introduced us to one of the guys that works for Steve. And he came to us and we met at American Ice Company.
Okay.
And he pretended to be our friend. Is he here? No, he's not here. Okay, I was hoping he was here. He pretended to just want to be friends, but really he wanted to franchise the company. he tried to get us to franchise Sweetgreen.
You thought we were just getting drinks and all that
Yeah, after about it, very quickly we're never going to franchise.
Right.
We did become very good friends, and he ended up being very helpful. Invested personally, helped us raise money. We had, with his help, we actually did 2 other rounds of fundraising before this one, smaller rounds.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was just, a friend that helped us and was there when we needed him. And then the summer came along, and we had pretty much just completed another round of fundraising. But given our aspirations for where we wanted to go, he had gotten Steve in a year earlier, and him and Steve came there, and we think the time could be right to kind of invest, not to change the business, but to really, the reason we did this round was to continue to invest in the people and the culture that will prepare us for the next stage of growth. So whether we took this money recently or not, this year from the outside, and even partially through next year, won't look any different. Right? We're opening exactly as many stores as we were going to do before we took the money. Right. Actually, 2 less.
Why 2 less?
Our goal this year is really to kind of work on the insides of the company. It's to optimize, to build the team. Really focus on the culture and the team.
Right. So build systems that will make it easier.
Yeah. So just more isn't better.
Right.
But,
quality.
Building the right systems and really focusing on the culture. For us, that is going to be our competitive advantage, is creating a great place to work and really attracting the best talent. That's what's going to make Sweetgreen, the most successful.
Culture is a big topic. You hear a lot of. I sat up here a couple months ago with Tim O'Shaughnessy. He talked about culture. I live in Vegas with Tony Shea, and talks about culture all the time. There's a culture downtown with what's happening there. It's become such a big deal. Can you tell me a little bit about your culture? I mean, not every culture is the same. I want to hear how you approach culture and why it's important.
Yeah, so culture for us is everything. It's the glue that attracts. It's what attracts you to Sweetgreen. It's what makes work not feel like work, and it makes it fun, and it makes it not a job. And for us, it's this idea of the sweet life. So the sweet life for us is where passion and purpose come together. And that's what we hope our customers feel, but more importantly, is what we want our teammates to feel. So we want, to provide a place where you're working, but you're working with friends, and you feel like you are making a difference. And it's much more than a job and a paycheck. And it's important because, one, it makes life and work fun, and makes you happy, and that's really what this is all about, is to be happy. 2, it makes sense for business. It really is a win-win-win. When your team is happy and when you're happy, you treat your customers better, and things really work out much better. And it just, I do really believe in this, this idea of this existential idea of energy, and I think people can feel it. And I think when there's a strong culture, and when you have a tight team that loves what they're doing, people can feel that. There's an aura around it.
Right.
And you look at, Tony Shea we make everybody read his book. And I went out there last year to tour the downtown project, to tour the Zappos headquarters. Or I came back, my team contested. I came back really inspired, and we do a Tuesday meeting, a Tuesday all hands meeting. And one of the really cool things when I went to Vegas is I got to attend the Zappos quarterly meeting, and it was a big auditorium, and we go there, and it's all these department reports, and their culture is really weird, but like loving and weird, you probably know. Quirky. Quirky. So they do all weird stuff. They had a spoof to the Macklemore song at the thrift shop, and there was a wedding at their team meeting. And then the coolest part was Tony comes out and he's like, "And I'd like to introduce my friend, Tony Robbins." And Tony Robbins came out and did like the most incredible. I didn't know I would fall for this, but I was I went nuts for it.
Yeah.
Like, were you there?
Yeah, well, he's an inspiring.
Yeah, just, so I got back to the office. I made everybody do the thing where he makes you stand up and scream yes.
Mm-hmm.
You guys want to do it?
Yeah, I think we should. Do it. Let's do it.
That's all you.
No, you're telling the story. I'm just listening.
I'm not ready for that right now.
Okay. All right.
It does feel good though.
It does feel good. We'll do it at the end. How's that?
I think we should do it at the end.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, we do it with me?
Yeah, I'll do it.
All right, cool. You guys get ready.
Yeah.
Grab a
We have
beer.
to explain what they need to do, though. We'll do that at the end. Okay.
We're good.
All right, and then, all right, so, yeah, definitely a different vibe, right, than you were used to.
Yeah, from getting inspired by people like that
Right.
have used culture as their competitive advantage. And
Right.
the companies that we really admired
Yeah.
used culture as one of the things that made them stand out.
No, that's interesting. Because ultimately, you're right, it does attract, right? We're
Yeah.
like mirrors.
I mean, it's this thing we used to call it the virtuous cycle. Now we brand it as the sweet cycle.
Right.
But the idea is, great people attract great people.
Mhm.
Great leaders. Someone great doesn't want to work for, someone not great. And
Right.
so if you create a great place to work
Mhm.
and you attract the best people, that other great people want to work with them, and it's this
Right.
virtuous cycle.
Right. Sounds like you have fun with it, too, like in general.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Okay, so I want to open it up to questions a little bit, so we're going to be ready for that yes in a minute, but if you see these screens that are on the sides here, there's a hashtag, it's TechCocktailDC, so have your questions. If you want to ask a question, use that hashtag and we'll be able to ask questions via Twitter too in a little bit. All right, so next we're going to talk about your brand and next steps.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe in the beginning, you're looking at maybe as more of a lifestyle brand with that funding and your big aspirations with what you want to do. Where do you see it going? Like, where do you see Sweetgreen going?
So our vision is, what we do is we create experiences where passion and purpose come together. That's we don't see ourselves as making salads.
Right.
With the current, the short term is really, to focus on the core business. We do love businesses that do all kinds of things, but we know that they started off doing one thing really well.
Right.
So our long-term vision, our 30-year vision, is to be a company that stands for a lot more. It stands for this idea of passion and purpose,
Yeah.
and it can do a lot of things. It can be in the music space, it can be in the travel space,
Yep.
it can be in the hospitality space, it can be in the food space. It can do a lot of things. Today, it's focus and focusing on the core business, which is Sweetgreen restaurants.
Yep.
And then really also ramping up some of our community efforts. But these are things that help the restaurant. So things like Sweetlife Festival, we'd like to grow that, both geographically and where it is in terms of influence and scale.
Very cool.
Sweetgreen Passport is our program that we do with fitness studios in all the communities that we're in. And then Sweetgreen in Schools is kind of our nonprofit arm that goes and educates schools in the communities that we're in. So we've just launched both Passport and Sweetgreen Schools in Boston and New York. So now we're educating kids and we're offering free fitness classes in all of these cities. And those businesses, right now they're kind of businesses, they're kind of marketing initiatives, but kind of like Sweetlife, if this little idea grows, it can have a life of its own.
Right. I think you just mentioned a really important point that maybe not everyone realizes to begin with, but if you create a really great brand, you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're going to focus on your business, but you can take that brand and it can morph and do a number of different things.
Yeah. So our philosophy has always been keep these things in our DNA, these
Right.
things that we truly believe in,
Yeah.
these parts of the lifestyle, the sweet life. But right now you can only do
So much,
You can
right?
only do so much, and the great the companies that we really admire, the greatest companies, did one thing, did it really well,
Yeah.
and then when the time was right, went and did something else.
Yeah.
So we want to kind of maintain this really long-term vision of what it could be, but for right now, really stay laser focused.
Okay. Let me just pull up a quick analogy. So some people say that, the McDonald's of today is Starbucks. Do you see yourself as maybe the Starbucks of tomorrow? Or how do you fit into the ecosystem, I guess you could say?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I started this business, and I think Starbucks also, I'm very close to it. I've seen how they've changed over the past few years.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone, but I actually really do admire Starbucks a lot. I think what they've done, the fact that they have a coffee company is 20,000 restaurants or 20,000 stores. It's a $60 billion company, and they're smart enough to, they're innovating technology. They've done really interesting things, and they failed too.
Yeah.
They did that Square thing that failed, but it was cool that they tried. No other company of that scale will try to do that. And I think they're really smart in the way they've refreshed their stores.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that, they're now my competitor. They just bought Evolution Juice,
Right.
Evolution Fresh. So
Right.
In a way they're competition, but
Right.
I would love for Sweetgreen to be kind of the Starbucks of healthy living.
And they've branched out into they give music away.
They've
sell
done
music.
they've done music. They really for a food company they've really innovated in a lot of ways.
Interesting.
And to think that you would no one would have thought of coffee like as something that you would that could be a $60 billion brand. It's unbelievable.